I knew something was ending long before she said it out loud. Endings don't arrive with dramatic music or obvious warnings. They seep in quietly, through small rearrangements. A toothbrush moved slightly farther from yours. Messages that become updates instead of conversations. The way someone stops correcting your misunderstandings because correcting implies investment. By the time she suggested dinner, I already felt like a guest in my own marriage. Still, I said yes too quickly. The restaurant sat on the edge of town where businesses tried to look upscale without fully committing. Soft lighting, polished wood, menus that used too many adjectives for ordinary food. It was the kind of place people chose for neutral conversations, birthdays that felt obligatory, job offers that might be declined, apologies rehearsed in advance. I arrived early and chose the table near the window. Outside, the parking lot glowed under streetlights that flattened everything into muted amber. Inside, forks tapped against plates, waiters moved with professional patience, and couples leaned toward each other in private worlds that would remain invisible to me. Waiting did something strange to my thoughts. Instead of imagining what she might say, I found myself remembering what she used to say, years earlier, when silence between us felt comfortable rather than diagnostic. I remembered her laughing too loudly in quiet places, her habit of narrating grocery lists like short stories, the way she once told me that being married felt like having a permanent witness to your life. Somewhere along the way, we stopped witnessing each other. When she walked in, she smiled. It was a careful smile, polite, symmetrical, unburdened by spontaneity. I stood, hugged her briefly, and felt that familiar absence of recognition that sometimes happens when someone close becomes slightly unfamiliar. We sat. Water arrived. Menus opened. We discussed appetizers we both knew we wouldn't order. There was no hostility. That might have been easier. Instead, there was coordination. 12 minutes passed like that. I remember because I checked the time once, out of habit, not anxiety. Then she folded her napkin and placed it beside her plate. I'm leaving you. The sentence landed gently, like a glass set down with care. Nothing around us changed. Conversations continued. A server refilled a nearby drink. Someone laughed too loudly at a joke I couldn't hear. I felt something inside me settle, not shatter. I smiled. Not a mocking smile. Not disbelief. Just the quiet expression that appears when something finally becomes explicit. Her expression tightened. This isn't funny, she said. I know. Silence followed, but it wasn't empty. It was populated with months of unspoken context. She began explaining. She spoke about distance, about losing herself, about the fear of waking up 10 years later feeling misplaced in her own life. Her words were measured, as if she had practiced them during solitary drives or while brushing her teeth at night. I listened. Not defensively. Not generously. Simply as someone receiving information already anticipated. I've signed a lease, she said eventually. I move next week. The logistical clarity of that sentence mattered more than the emotional ones. A plan existed. A timeline existed. My role had been to learn about it tonight. I nodded, absorbing that. Across the room, the entrance door opened, letting in a brief rush of cold air. I glanced up instinctively. Right on time. My brother stepped inside, scanning the room with that calm awareness he carried into every space. Beside him walked Elena, who had managed our finances for nearly a decade. They paused at the host's stand before moving toward our table. My wife's eyes followed my gaze. Recognition flickered across her face, followed quickly by confusion. You invited them, she asked softly. I didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was more complicated than invitation. Weeks earlier, after one of those evenings where she sat beside me while feeling miles away, I had realized something uncomfortable. Emotional denial doesn't prevent practical consequences. If our marriage ended, whether abruptly or gradually, decisions would still need to be made. Not emotional ones. Structural ones. So I had scheduled a consultation. Not to confront her. Not to trap her. To avoid becoming an observer in decisions that shaped my own life. My brother and Elena reached the table and greeted us with gentle normalcy. No dramatics. No tension. Just presence. This is unexpected, my wife said, though her tone carried more curiosity than anger. It is, I replied. But it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. Elena placed a leather folder on the table but didn't open it yet. Consent hovered silently in the air. My brother spoke first, his voice steady and unhurried. He explained that nothing needed to be decided tonight. That information was simply a way to reduce future friction. That preparation was not accusation. The folder opened. Inside were summaries, joint accounts, property documents, timelines, options for mediation rather than litigation. No demands. No ultimatums. Just maps. My wife stared at the pages without touching them. I thought you didn't know, she said. I didn't know details, I answered. But I knew distance. That seemed to land somewhere deeper than argument could. For a moment, none of us spoke. The restaurant noise filled the gaps like background static. Then she asked questions. Not defensive ones. Clarifying ones. The conversation that followed felt strangely collaborative, as if we were co-workers closing a project rather than partners dissolving a marriage. There was sadness in that realization, but also relief. Conflict had been replaced by comprehension. The turning point wasn't loud. It arrived quietly when she looked at me differently, not as someone being left, but as someone already participating in the separation with composure. You prepared, she said. I adjusted, I replied. The distinction mattered. By the time the folder closed, nothing had been finalized. But the imbalance had dissolved. The evening no longer belonged to her announcement alone. It belonged to both of us navigating its implications. Outside, the night air felt sharper. Snow drifted under the parking lot lights, dissolving before reaching the ground. My brother and Elena said their goodbyes, leaving us standing beside our cars. For the first time that evening, uncertainty appeared in her posture. I didn't expect you to smile, she admitted. I didn't expect you to leave, I said. But here we are. She exhaled, a sound carrying exhaustion rather than regret. I didn't plan to hurt you. I believe you. Hurt doesn't require intention. We stood there longer than necessary, two people aware that this moment would become a memory referenced differently by each of us. I hope you're okay, she said. I will be, I answered. Eventually. That seemed enough. She got into her car, paused for a second with the engine running, then drove away without looking back. Not out of cruelty, simply because departure requires forward motion. I remained. The parking lot returned to its ordinary stillness, as if nothing meaningful had occurred. Cars came and went. A couple argued softly near the entrance. Snow continued falling without commitment. Sitting in my car, I realized dignity rarely announces itself. It appears in smaller decisions, scheduling a meeting, asking a question, refusing to be surprised by what you already understand. It exists in composure that isn't performative but protective. She had ended our marriage at dinner. But she hadn't ended my agency within it. When I drove home, the house looked unchanged from the outside. Same porch light. Same curtains. Same quiet street. Inside, everything would eventually rearrange. But that night, standing in the entryway with my keys still in my hand, I felt neither victorious nor defeated. Only aligned with reality. And sometimes, alignment is the closest thing dignity has to victory.